Crescent City Steakhouse, a true neighborhood restaurant operated by the Vojkovic family since 1934, is the oldest steakhouse in the city of New Orleans. Serving only hand-cut, prime-aged, corn-fed beef for over 80 years, Crescent City Steakhouse has become a dining destination for both die-hard locals and adventurous travelers who seek traditional, timeless New Orleans cuisine. Crescent City Steakhouse, 1001 North Broad, on the corner of St. Philip, in the heart of New Orleans. So here's the bottom line. Well, it's funny that you say that. Let me tell you. Good evening and welcome to Primetime Sports. I'm your host, Scott Alexander, and if you love basketball, well, this is the show for you because I cannot wait. It's a big show of hoops. It's March Madness is here, and we're on fire. And speaking of on fire, well, how about the pro team here in New Orleans? The New Orleans Pelicans, they are absolutely in fuego right now. They're on an 8-game win streak, as you know. Their longest since 2007. This team is 10 games over 500, 36-26. That's the most games over 500 they've been since 2011. They're 5-0 since the All-Star break and currently in fourth place, only a game out of third. But conversely, they're only 2 games out of being out of the playoffs, too. So that is how tight the Western Conference is. It is truly amazing. How about this huge stretch of games, though? They've got 10 games, mostly coming up at home after the last 2 road games this week. And they play 5 games in 6 days, 7 out of 10 days. They had to make up that Indiana game, so it's going to be crazy. So get on out there and support that team. Hey, speaking of basketball, LSU Hoops, they finished strong this weekend. Hey, they had their best second half of the season, blowing out Mississippi State, who was trying to win to go to the tournament. They probably knocked them out, but great job by Will Wade and his team all season long, recovering from that poor season last year. When he wasn't the coach yet. How about this great weekend up in Baton Rouge? The LSU baseball team and the softball teams both swept their opponents. In gymnastics, they won their second straight SEC title. They've been second nationally, the runner-ups in the country. Maybe this is the year Dee Bro and company can take it all the way. Hey, by the way, more basketball. The Sun Belt Conference, the one UL Lafayette, or UL Raging Cajuns, I should say, University of Louisiana. That is here in New Orleans at Lakefront Arena where UNO plays. UNO's tournament's over there in Texas, but this is over there. And get out there and support these Raging Cajuns. Bob Marlin is going to be a guest on the show. He is the head coach of UL. They're 16-2 in conference, 26-5 overall. Speaking of local teams, Southeastern and Nichols, been saying it all year. They finished first and second when Southeastern beat Nichols this weekend. They tied for first at 15-3, but Southeastern gets it, the first seed, but they both get double byes in their tournament. And here's a look at all the local teams. How about this schedule right here? You have UNO playing on Wednesday at 5. They swept Texas A&M Corpus Christi. Tulane split with Temple earlier. They play on Thursday, as does LSU Mississippi State, who they just played. And then you see Southeastern and Nichols with the bye. But high school basketball playoffs, they're rolling. They're down to the semifinals, and even a couple are down to the finals in Lake Charles. They call it Marsh Madness down there because it's down in the marshes. Hey, the teams in South Louisiana still alive are plentiful. In 5A, you have Landry Walker, who always seems to be there. 4A, McDonough, 35, super strong this year. In 3A, you have a couple teams, one from New Orleans, Sophie B. Wright, and Madison Prep, always powerful out of Baton Rouge. And Division I, how about this? Javonte Smart, the LSU signee, superstar player. He in Scotlandville, they play McKinley in the semifinals. And that other semi in 5A is going to be Catholic versus St. Paul's. And in Division II, you have, that's Division I, I should say, not 5A. But Division II, you have a rematch of last year's final, De La Salle versus U-High. Last year, De La Salle won the title, but U-High had won the previous 3, so that should be great. St. Thomas More and Lusher also in that semi. And then in Division III, you have Riverside Academy, Aversa Episcopal. Then you have Country Day playing Dunham. Those are the top 4 teams. And also Lafayette Christian will be in Division IV, and so will Crescent City in Division V. Hey, the NFL Combine, LSU's Dante Jackson and Tulane's Perry Nickerson had the fastest 40 times, 4.32. And LSU wide receiver DJ Chark was right there at 4.34. And those are the 3 fastest times. But how about Ade Arune, the 3rd fastest DL at 4.6, and Darius Geis, the 5th fastest running back time at 4.49. Arden Key elected to wait till Pro Day. Also in golf, hey, but Phil Mickelson, he won his first PGA tourney in 5 years. We got to give it up to the lefty. He won in Mexico, edging super hot Justin Thomas in sudden death, and future Hall of Famer Kobe Bryant. How about this on Sunday? He won an Oscar. So now Black Mamba has the same amount of Oscars as Martin Scorsese and Al Pacino. Is that incredible? And also only one less than Denzel Washington and the great Robert De Niro. Wow. Good congratulations, Kobe Bryant. And by the way, Seth Dunlap and John Brady, along with Bob Marlin, it's a basketball-filled show. Coming up right here on Primetime Sports. Welcome back to Primetime Sports, and that saxophone player is one of not only the best in the city and the best in the state, he is one of the best in the entire country. James Martin, get to know him because he is going to become one of the greats, much like Trombone Shorty has already done. Hey, moving forward, we know that this is a football town and a football state, but there's plenty of us here that love the game of basketball, and get ready for this show because we're going to put football a little on the back burner, and it's going to be a lot of basketball. I got John Brady, who's my basketball analyst. You know that, the college basketball season. We have him on all the time. He is going to talk a lot about what's going on in the SEC tournament coming up and also what LSU's done this season. Continue all that, and a little bit of national talk as well. And I'm also going to have UL Raging Cajun coach Bob Marlin, who, by the way, has done incredible things in his 8th season over there in Lafayette. It is the University of Louisiana for those of you around the state. That's what they want to be called. So I just say UL Raging Cajun. But you can't say anything but first place for them. They're 16-2 after a surprise loss. They were almost this close to 17-1. They had a 17-point lead in that game but lost. But they're still going into the Sun Belt tournament on a roll. That is a great season. So he's going to come up and tell us all about what to expect this week in the tournament and their chances for the NCAAs as well. But right now, I've got my man over there from WWL Radio. He has a show with Christian Garrick. It is every night from 8 to 11 on WWL, 870 AM. And he was on the show before the season. I want to bring him back right here at the end of the season to kind of talk about March Madness. And his name is Seth Dunlap, and he's a little taller than me, but I'm not sure he can shoot
What's
like
up,
me.
buddy?
But no, I'm sure you can. He is a great basketball player himself, and you have the basketball tie to prove it.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is the basketball show, so I wore the tie.
I love it.
I'm looking good, so yeah.
Well, I mean,
Tis the season.
You know, in the Open, I talked a little bit about March Madness, which is obviously the Louisiana version of the high school playoffs. But March Madness is what we all love. It starts this week. You got the NCAA tournaments and all that, and also you got, I mean, the conference tournaments in the NCAA. But right now, it's Pels fever. And I got to get on this. This team has won 8 in a row. They haven't lost in almost a month. I know the All-Star break helped it, but they haven't lost since February the 9th. We're sitting here at March 6th. This city, which has been pretty critical, and rightfully so a lot of times, of the New Orleans Pelicans, they have their longest win streak since 2011. Like I said, they haven't lost since March the 9th, which is kind of, it's hard to even say. They've won 8 games in a row. What are your thoughts on this team, brother?
Well, it's a remarkable turnaround. I, self-reflectively, was one of the people who didn't think this could happen without Boogie Cousins. I will fully admit that. I did not think this team, first of all, I didn't think they'd bring in Mirotic and then Okafor be this revelation that they saw. But what they're doing, especially offensively, the pace of play is a historic level right now. And we can talk maybe, I don't know if you want to get into the nonsense that I think that people think this team's actually better without Boogie Cousins. I absolutely don't. I think that's
agree
absurd.
With that, no.
I think it's absurd. Now, what they're doing without Boogie that they probably wouldn't be able to do is the pace of play.
No question.
They've really picked up. And this is where, you said it, we've been, I don't want to speak for you, I've been critical of Alvin Gentry.
Sure.
Right? But this is his offense now. And we have to give him a lot of credit for the minutes and how he's utilizing guys like Okafor, moving Mirotic to the bench. His scheme offensively, pushing the play. They're the Houston Rockets, but they're playing faster than the Rockets, if you can believe that right now. The turnaround's been remarkable. And when I look across the Western Conference, which is a crazy conference right now, they're the third best team today in this conference. I fully believe that. Now, they're only 2 games out of the 9th seed, right?
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
And they're a game out of the 3rd seed.
Yes.
Which is like, I mean, they're sitting at 4th right now. There's a lot of teams bunched up. A loss can put you from 3 to 7 like that. But you're right. I mean, it's kind of remarkable.
No, look, they're playing like the third best team in the conference, and this is why I think fans should be really excited. I have maintained that this season, I don't think that sneaking into the playoffs as the 8th seed, the 7th seed, getting routed by the Warriors, the Rockets, who we knew would be
2 best teams in the NBA, let's be honest.
We knew that,
right?
We knew that coming in. We knew that this conference is going to go to one of those teams, barring some historic collapse by one of them. But the reason that I'm excited now is doesn't look like they're just going to sneak in the 7th or 8th seed the way they're playing right now. It looks like, again, if they keep playing like this or resembling anything like this, they're going to get a home court advantage in a series. They're going to be favored in whatever series they play against the 6th or 5th seed if they do get that home series. This is an exciting time to be a Pelicans fan, and I just hope that fans start coming out there to the Smoothie King Center, because attendance, rightfully so probably when they were struggling, a little bit lacking, but no football right now. Like you said, it's basketball season. We got the tie on, man. It's Pels season.
They're certainly going to have their opportunity,
yeah,
because the Pels have 2 more games on this road trip to hopefully extend. They play tonight, of course, against the Clippers, and then they have the Sacramento Kings. But then they come home and they have some tough games, but they have 5 games in 6 days because of the makeup of the Indiana rain-out game back last month. That's going to be on the 21st. So now, like the old days, I remember growing up, and 3 games in a row was not uncommon. But they outlawed that years ago. The CBA did, the collective bargaining agreement. But they're going to have 3 games in a row, 5 out of 6, and 7 out of 10, and almost all of those are home games. So that can make or break you right there. The Pels, ironically, have the 5th best road record, so their road record is actually a little better than their home record right now. So I don't know what that means.
Yeah, well, they're getting lucky that this stretches at home. But no NBA team recently in modern NBA history, post the last CBA, has gone through something like this.
For guys your age.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we don't remember something like this. Well, I do a little bit.
I remember vividly.
Yeah, I remember a little bit. But
like 3 to make 2 on the free throws.
You don't see teams play 5 games in 6 days. And I was talking about this before. Think about the players on this team. You go back to high school. Most high schools now, you don't play 2 games in a row. It's like a Thursday, Saturday. It might be a Tuesday, Friday.
Except for a tournament, yeah.
Yeah, tournament. You go to college. What are they doing? It's a Friday, Sunday. It's a Thursday, Saturday. These guys aren't used to not only not playing 2 days in a row, usually. They're not used to playing 5 games in 6 days. This is uncharted territory for everybody. So I've given Alvin Gentry a lot of credit here. He's got to be extremely conservative and careful with the minutes that he plays.
Right.
We saw what happened with Boogie. That was coming off the back end of high usage, a lot of minutes over a short period of time. I would not be surprised. I know fans aren't going to want to hear this. It's a big debate across the NBA right now, but I wouldn't be surprised, say that Pacers game, which is in the middle of that 3-game, 5 out of 6 stretch in the 3 games in a row, I wouldn't be surprised to see Gentry just sit everybody that he can. Sit Davis, sit Holiday.
Yeah. For health reasons, if nothing else. But the funny thing is, you have to get wins too. And let me tell you why I haven't been as critical as most people in the city on Gentry. Because in the beginning, Gentry, I'm going to give Gentry a lot of credit for what he did for Golden State. People don't give him enough, because when Mark Jackson was the coach, they actually won 50 games that first year, his last year there, but he got fired because he was playing. It was like this old NBA stopgap basketball where it was one-on-one, or you're trying to post down one-on-one. That team wasn't built for that, so Steve Kerr got the job, brought Gentry in from the Clippers, and all of a sudden, those two together developed this free-flowing offense, which Steve Kerr gives the credit to him. Well, you could bring him here, you're thinking you're going to bring that, but you don't have the pieces for that. You have these odd mix of pieces, kind of like a fantasy basketball team where you're throwing a Ryan Anderson, who's not a runner and up and down the court, he didn't get up, and Tyreek Evans is more of a half-court guy. He can get up, but that's not his game. And Drew Holiday, you just had some pieces, and they were never healthy together. And that's why I kind of gave him a break. They had the biggest injury-riddled season in the history of the league, and that's a fact, his first season. And then last year, you have all the injuries off the start of the season. You're all of a sudden, you're starting off like, 1-11, and you're behind the 8 ball. So finally this year, everybody expects him to go from, 34-30 wins. Oh, well, they have Boogie and AD. They should win 50 games, right? Well, Vegas, who is never wrong or rarely wrong, has them winning 39.5 to 40 games. All right, so when the Pels were kind of rolling along at 25 or 20 and 19 or 22 and 20. Everybody's like, this is terrible. But Vegas expected that. Mm-hmm. And now they're rolling. And now you're seeing with, 3 years into this offense, you're seeing what he was actually brought in for. And they're free-flowing. They may give up a ton of points, but when you score a lot, you're not going to give up 99 points a game. No, so the fact is, I think this guy is doing a fantastic job at the moment.
I don't mind turning this segment into an Alvin Gentry credit or love segment. And if you go back to last season, I said this on my show a lot in the face of a lot of Gentry criticism. You go back to the post-Boogie Cousins trade last year when he was brought in. The Pelicans didn't win a lot of games, but if you look past that, if you go into the advanced analytics that everybody uses now, the Pelicans were getting more open looks for their shooters than anybody in the NBA. So if you go to what Alvin Gentry was designing in his offense and getting looks for guys like Drew Holiday, Miller, everybody else, that was working. It was working. Guys weren't making the shots. So I maintained that you couldn't put a lot of that on Gentry. He was brought in to be the offensive guy, design an offense to get his shooters open looks. Now they're knocking those down. Mirotic has been fabulous off the bench. So has Darius Miller. Ian Clark's coming along. Anthony Davis has been all world. We know that. He's thrust himself into that MVP conversation, but they're so much deeper, so much more balanced now. And here's what I think the Boogie Cousins injury did. I maintain this is not, don't listen to anybody saying that they're a better team talent-wise without Boogie Cousins. They are not.
No chance.
But you know this. Sometimes teams need a little adversity, a little spark of adversity to come together, gel, and I think that happened with Boogie Cousins, the injury. I think Anthony Davis and the rest of this team said, hey, we can't just throw it on the low block to Boogie and watch him work for 30 possessions a game. That's just not anymore.
It's been a godsend for the actual team. Mm-hmm. And I want to go one step further. How important was it to get Mirotic and Emeka Okafor in right away? Because Emeka Okafor was a chance. I mean, I can be honest with you. Dell was not even sure himself that this would work out. He just went to a lot of G League games and was seeing what he was doing. And he's like, I just need a guy that can defend, block a few shots, give me some rebounds to take some pressure off Anthony. But to get him and Mirotic in the fold so quickly, we both know that it was important, but why?
Well, I think actually, and this may run a little counterintuitive here, Mirotic has been fantastic. I think he's been exactly what they need. He loves to shoot. He's not shy, and I think his role off the bench right now is great. I actually think, and a lot of people are going to disagree with me, that Emeka Okafor has been the more important piece here the last month.
I don't disagree.
Because he's doing stuff that you won't find in the box score. He's playing very good defense on the low block. He's allowing Anthony Davis to play the 4 instead of the 5. He's a tenacious rebounder, which he's always been, back to his college days. This is exactly the guy that they needed.
Yeah, you see him rolling right there. I mean, the guy still gets up a good bit. We just saw a medley of block shots. And he's a smart basketball player. He's one of the smarter guys in the NBA, not just on the court, but this guy's like a 4.0 at UConn, and his parents are both doctors. The guy knows smarts on the field, and he's been around the league a while as a former second pick of the entire draft.
What a fabulous story. Is there a better story in the NBA the last month than his resurgence?
There's zero stories better than that one.
It's incredible.
And good things happen to good people, and he has been that way his whole life. But Mirotic, I have to tell you, I didn't know he could play defense this well. I didn't know he had the moxie on defense. That's the thing. He doesn't have the actual athletic skills to, but Ryan Anderson didn't have him either, and Ryan couldn't guard anybody. This guy will put his hand up at the last second, and he just has that way of knocking you off your shot. He might get a piece of the ball, but even if he doesn't, he seems to throw the guys off. And I've watched him ISO'd many, many times, and I'm thinking, okay, maybe it's just a few lucky plays. No, this guy's a pretty good all-around player. How would you compare him to the former Pell Ryan Anderson?
Well, he's higher motor, to use a football term, to use a term on the defensive line, right? I think he's a very high motor guy every possession, and you said it, defensively and offensively. And this is where I think bringing him off the bench, moving him to the bench just helps. This is another great move by Gentry. Let's go back to our Gentry love. Not a lot of coaches would have made that move, brought back Okafor and put him into the starting lineup and move your guy you just traded for that was supposed to be this integral piece to the bench. I think he's been fantastic. I think you're absolutely right. He's different from Ryan Anderson. There's been a lot of comparisons there, but especially on the defensive side of the floor.
Let's go about college basketball. That's what I love. I've been on your show a few times talking. You and Christian, Christian sometimes thinks LSU baseball is more important than the Pels. And, maybe in June it is, but certainly not this time of year. But let me say this about college basketball. I love the way you cover it, and I love the way you love the game. So let's just make it a broad question. Going into March with the conference tournaments. Big Ten's already played theirs. Michigan won that one. But going into the rest of these, and the NCAA tournament will do their selection show on Sunday. Just give me your thoughts on what's going to happen this coming up March.
Well, I think it's going to be an incredible year with how wide open this field is, right? You don't have that dominant favorite coming into this tournament like you did maybe last year with UNC and Gonzaga were the two favorites, right? And during the tournament, that's who we saw in the title game. Virginia's great. They're playing at a historic defensive pace. This is probably, in the modern basketball era, post-3-point line, the most defensively efficient team on a per-possession basis you'll ever seen. So if you like defense, and I do, you're going to love Virginia. By the way, this is their third ACC title in the last 5 years. Tony Bennett doesn't get enough credit.
Best coach in America, in my opinion.
Oh, he's one of them. I think him, I think Mark Few, and I think Jay Wright, the three best coaches right now in America. And I think those are your three favorites. You're going to say I'm a little bit of a homer here because we talked Gonzaga a little bit.
Go for it.
Gonzaga is being so undervalued by the national media right now.
Because I agree with you, but I want you to go. I just want to say, last year you said that UNC and Gonzaga were the favorites. But if you go by what the country thought in pools, and I did this mega pool with I think 800 people, only 10% of them picked Gonzaga, and I was one of them. If they had won, I would have won that thing, actually. And that's great. That's the reason I know. But this year they are super undervalued, but they might be more balanced than they were last year.
They are. They're young. They've got one senior, Silas Melson, who contributes, but they're relying on that foreign influence. There's a Japanese-born player, Rui Hachimura, who everybody now, scouts are on him like honey on.
Love this guy.
He's on honey, man. He's going to be great. Killian Tilly.
Killian Tilly is the guy to me. He's become one of my favorites.
We were talking about that off the air a little bit before. Gonzaga is deep. They've got one of the best coaches in the nation, and there's no reason they can't make a run. Here's the thing. They're going to be seeded at 4 or 5 if all the bracketologists are correct, which I think they always are. But I like Virginia. I like Villanova a lot. Don't count out Duke. And I think Gonzaga's there. Arizona's the tricky one. If they remain eligible and all their players and Sean Miller comes back and he's eligible, that could be the adversity moment like we were talking about the Pelicans. That could be it for the Wildcats. Watch out. They've never made a Final Four under Miller. That's been elusive for him, kind of like it was for Few and Gonzaga last year. Watch out for Arizona if everything stays above.
Well, they have that chip on the shoulder. They don't have Alonzo Trier, though, right? I mean, they had the two leading scorers in the conference, and I think the two best players, DeAndre Ayton, who I thought, Arizona got a pretty good deal for only getting for $100,000. Trier is back, so you have Trier and both of them. Trier, I thought he had the PED thing, but he is back. Yeah. But that is a team to look out for. What about a Kansas team that is kind of surging right now? A lot of people aren't counting them in, but they do have a leader in Devontae Graham.
What they're doing in that conference is incredible, right? The consecutive titles in that conference. But even if you talk to Bill Self, he admits this isn't the same Kansas team.
Of course it's not.
And I am not going to get...
He's underplaying them, man.
They are the Andy Reid of this college basketball team,
man. He's pretty good. I mean...
No, I love Self, but they're the Andy Reid teams of this college basketball tournament. I have been burned way too many times with better Kansas teams than this one.
No question.
I like the program. I love
That's why
Bill
they'll
Self.
go all the way.
Yeah, probably. Exactly. That's going to be it this year.
I mean, Purdue's a team that can make it there. There are several. Cincinnati can defend and I have to mention Xavier because I did a game earlier this year. They were in the 6 to 10 range at the time, and I kept saying when I left there, and I know Xavier's a different team at home, which is where I saw them, but that team at the Cintas Center, that team just seemed to be one of these teams that was well-rounded, and their coach admitted to me, they said, we cannot beat Villanova, though. And Villanova whips their butt every single time, has done it 10 out of 11 times. But they don't have to play Villanova anymore after this tournament, probably. So I think that Chris Mack has got a good chance with Trayvon Blewett to take his team all the way.
No, they're no longer that mid-major. They've entered that, we're talking about Gonzaga, the Gonzaga zone, where they're now a power player in college basketball. There's no doubt about it. I'm interested to hear what Coach Brody has to say to you about the SEC play. I still don't think there's an Elite Eight team in the field here. I think when he lost Anthony McFarland for Auburn, I think they were that one team that I could see under Bruce Pearl's system to come in. But I just don't see it. They're so deep. I think it's the deepest conference in the country. I'm not hating on the SEC at all here.
No, I think everybody sees that.
I don't see the one
They don't have a power team, but then Florida snuck. They got deep a couple of years back, and obviously last year South Carolina did. They always seem to have a team. Kentucky, when they were a 9 seed or 8 seed, they got into the finals a few years back too. So you never know. SEC is more football conference as we know, but I'm loving I'd love to see the mid-major final. I'd love to see Xavier versus Gonzaga. I really would. I'm a big Tony Bennett fan, so I wouldn't mind Virginia. And obviously, Duke has that 1-2 punch with Grayson Allen and, of course, Marvin Bagley. So that would be fun to watch as well. It's going to be great.
Oh, man.
It's March Madness.
I can't wait.
Thank you for coming on so much.
All right. Thanks.
Actually, I probably went 8 minutes over. So anyway, sorry, John Brady. Sorry, Bob Marlin. But we're coming up next. We have those two great basketball coaches right here on Primetime Sports. Stay tuned.
The owners of the Delachaise Wine Bar on St. Charles Avenue have opened up their newest creation uptown on Maple Street called Chez Delachaise, a new local wine bistro featuring a larger menu of small and large plates, a brighter atmosphere, and full table service. Additionally, patrons can enjoy a large patio out front as well as an extensive wine list offering selections from around the world. It's Chez Delachaise, 7708 Maple Street between Carrollton and Broadway.
Rock and roll will never die. It's old New Orleans, my, oh my. Come on, baby, let's go rock and roll at the city lane. All night, let's roll, let's rock and roll. Baby, do the rock and roll. At Mid-City Lane's the home of rock and roll.
Fall in love with autumn with PJ's new seasonal lattes. Our pumpkin latte brings you all the flavors of a pumpkin pie with hints of cinnamon and nutmeg, like your favorite holiday dessert in a cup. And our s'mores latte with flavors of toasted marshmallows, warm milk chocolate, and graham cracker cinnamon is sure to bring back campfire memories. The PJ's Fall Seasonal Lattes, available at your local PJ's only for a limited time.
Welcome back to Primetime Sports. I want to thank Seth Dunlap. That was some great coverage of the Pelicans, and obviously we covered all of the national college basketball scene, more for the SEC and LSU in general. We're going to have John Brady coming up next, but right now, the team that's played the best basketball in the state of Louisiana, I don't think there's any question about it. It is the UL Raging Cajuns. I've been giving them love in the open of this show literally for the last 2 months, and they have deserved it. They lost their finale game that they were up by 17 on Saturday, but this team finished 16-2 in conference. That is remarkable. 25-4, 26-5 overall, I should say. I have head coach Bob Marlin on, who's done some great things there. He's been there for about a decade. He was at 12 years before that. He was at Sam Houston State, taking that team, the Bearcats, to the tournament for the first time ever back in 2003. But the lineage before that is pretty interesting to me, because obviously you don't just become a head coach right away. You got to be an assistant in a few places. And he's had an incredibly eclectic, great group of coaches that he's coached under. First, we all know Mike Vining up at UL Monroe. He's done some great things up there. Gene Iba at Houston Baptist. And how about this? Dana Altman, who coached Oregon to the Final Four last season. Well, he was an assistant under him at Marshall. And then, of course, David Hobbs over there at Alabama. So this man's been coaching for quite a while, and everything he's doing this season is earned. Only one losing season in the conference that he coached in, which is now the Sun Belt, in his entire coaching career at UL. And that is remarkable. But Bob Marlin, welcome to the show. I'm so honored to have you on right now going into the Sun Belt tournament this weekend.
Well, I appreciate it. It's a pleasure to be on with you guys. And we've had a great year. A lot of exciting basketball started in Cuba. We took our team on a foreign trip to Cuba in August and came back, and we lost our opener to Ole Miss, had to lead at halftime. And since then, we've played extremely good basketball and excited about what we did in Sun Belt Conference play and looking forward to getting an opportunity to play in the big tournament.
When this thing gets rolling, I mean, it can go – I know you've been on probably teams that may get on a losing streak, and it's hard to turn around, but you had the opposite thing happen this year, which is what every coach loves. When you get on that winning streak and you feel that you can't lose, when did you realize that, hey, this team right here that you're coaching this year for in Lafayette for UL Raging Cajuns was going to be very special?
Well, starting in Cuba, we knew that we had a good team, and that was good for a couple of our transfers to play. They had to shake some of the rust off from not playing after a year of redshirting and working hard on their game. And we got to Christmas. We had a good non-conference. We were 10-3, I believe. And we lost our last game at Clemson. It was number 5 in the country at the time, RPI-wise. They handled us pretty easily. And we came back and we just recommitted ourselves to the defensive end of the court. We've been a good rebounding team the last couple of years, but we needed to be better defensively. And we jumped out on Little Rock, our very first conference game, 18-2 out of the gate, just really guarded. And then it carried over. We went and played John's old school at A-State, and always a tough place to win. And won there by 10 in a really good game, and came home and beat App State convincingly and held them to 48 points. And then we knew, hey, we've got a chance to be pretty good. And we won our first 10 games. We were 10-0, Scott, and all 10 wins were by double figures. So we knew we had a good group. And we lost the last game of the conference season on Saturday, and Little Rock didn't play well. Senior day, losing overtime, and there's a bunch of our fans ready to jump off the Cajun Dome. I personally think it's the best thing that could happen to us.
Somebody that knows that well, you referenced John Brady, who is going to be in my next segment. Well, he just popped in the chair, and I love having coach-to-coach talk. I had him last year with both Dale Brown and Richard Williams, and it's always fun to have coaches talk to coaches. You got something for Coach
Well,
John?
I got one observation, and Bob, you can maybe speak on this. You were kind of in a situation Saturday that our friend Kermit Davis was at Middle the other night, and you win it outright, and you're going to win the conference championship, and then you have to turn around and play maybe the last place team, or in case he played Marshall. How was it to get you? Were you worried about that game on that Saturday after the way you played Thursday, similar to what Kermit had to go through in his loss to Marshall?
Well, it's more about how you play, John. You know that. And on senior day, they're tough. They're emotional. I mean, we had 3 great seniors, one from New Orleans there, Bryce Washington, who's been a mainstay for me for 4 years and done a tremendous job, the only player in the league to average a double-double the last 2 seasons. And it's an emotional day. And if you don't play well, they can go either way, John. You've been a part of them, too. They're either really good or they're not so good.
Right.
We just struggled. We had our second worst shooting game of the year. Jonathan Stove got hurt against Arkansas State in the first half. He's one of our energy guys, one of 3 players that scored 1,000 points this year coming off the bench for us. He got hurt with a high ankle sprain, and he couldn't play. But it was kind of the perfect storm, and it is what it is. And we refocused with our group yesterday, and looking forward to a great practice today to get ready for the tournament.
Coach, I mentioned when I introduced you all those great coaches that you coached under. Did you take a little something from each of those guys, or is anybody that stands out a little more than the others that you coached under?
No, I took stuff from all of them, Scott. And my first mentor was Mike Vining. I thought Mike was great with the players. He had a great relationship. He kept it simple. He didn't worry about the game like most coaches worry about it. He just took everything in stride and was the winningest coach in Southland in conference history. Just did a super job. And Gene Iba taught me how to defend. With the Iba name, you've got to learn how to be good defensively. And really taught me man-to-man defense. Tommy Jones, I worked for at Houston Baptist, was great with people and so good with administrators on campus, and learned how to get involved in the campus life there with him. Dana taught me a little bit about zone defense at Marshall, something I knew nothing about. If I said zone at HBU, I'd get backhanded. So that was a good time for me there with Dana, and then went to Pensacola and thought I knew how to coach defense and do some things, and we had us there and won a national third year. Johnson, a couple of my guys actually there, and saw those teams play, but I left there and went to Alabama, and I worked for David Hobbs, another great teacher, great defensive coach. I learned a little bit more about the defensive end of the court with David, and then, of course, Sam Houston and here. I've taken a little bit from everyone, and that's what I tell young coaches.
How special has it been to have your son on the coaching staff? I know you have a close relationship. What's that like?
What's that?
Doesn't your son work with you on the coaching staff, or am I mistaken there?
No, he doesn't.
All right, my bad. I thought that was the case. But you do have some royalty on your team. It may be New Orleans royalty, but it's royalty. Bryce Washington, who obviously his parents this year, I know people in the Crescent City know this, well, his parents were the king and queen of Zulu, which I think is pretty remarkable. Bryce is your double-double guy, averaging almost 11 points a game, over 10 rebounds a game. What does he bring for this team?
He brings leadership. It's kind of unique. I've always had a point guard as a leader, and we've got a great one in Marcus Stroman this year. But Bryce gives you leadership up the middle as a power forward that defends the other team's post usually. He understands the game. As I said, he's averaged a double-double the last 2 years. He's fifth in the nation in rebounding. He's a second leading rebounder in school history. And he's a third leading rebounder in Sun Belt history. Behind some guys John remembers and Sean Long and Augustine. Right. Here's a kid who started 2.5 years. Started only 2.5 years, scored 1,000 points, got 1,000 rebounds.
Sounds like your phone might be breaking up a little bit, Coach. Hey, real quick, I'm going to see if I can still get you, if you can still hear me. Hey, Stroman might be the guy that leads the team as the point guard, but the two leading scorers, I have to ask you about Frank Bartley and Jaqueen Grant. These guys are averaging over 33 points total for you. What do they mean to your team?
Bartley's done a great job scoring the ball. He's really worked hard and turned himself into a good shooter. He's a good defensive guard as well. And then Jaqueen Gant is a guy that can score the basketball, make three-point shots, and block, or led the league in block shots right through.
And one last thing, the guy that's my personal favorite on the team, he's not the highest scorer. In fact, out of the 6 guys we talked about, probably the lowest score, about 9 points a game. But he reminds me of Keith Jamal Wilkes back in the day, and that is Malik Marquetti. Tell me about what he means, because this guy can fill it up from all over the court.
Yeah, Malik's a guy that can shoot the basketball. He hasn't shot it quite as well lately. We need him to get going in the tournament. But he's definitely capable of scoring 20 points in a hurry, and he's got a smooth game.
Hey, I appreciate you, Coach. I know you got a big week ahead of you. We are rooting for you not only to win this Sun Belt tournament, but to take it all the way and get into the NCAA tournament and do some nice things there. For John Brady, I want to thank you very much for coming on the show, Coach.
You bet, guys. Thanks.
All right.
All right, we're going to take it because I got John Brady coming up next. So I want to take a break right now, and we're going to get into a little ULF yet off the top, but I appreciate you coming, Coach. Next, right here, well, you know who he is. He's my basketball analyst. 15 straight weeks last year. This year we gave him a break. He's doing LSU basketball too. So we're only bringing him in once a month, but it's March Madness, so you know he's here right now. Coming up next, the Final Four coach from 2006 and the new SEC legend from LSU, John Brady, right here on Primetime Sports. Welcome back to Primetime Sports. And, hey, I want to thank Bob Marlin for taking the time. He has got a big week this week with the Raging Cajuns. Well, they got that double bye. They play on Friday right here at 11:30 in New Orleans at the UNO Lakefront Arena. Hey, you saw John Brady at the end of that segment, but, hey, we brought him in to talk anyway. It's a big week for John Brady. He is named as one of the SEC legends. You know, every year each SEC team, well, at halftime of their first game, they have one of their legends getting honored. It's either a player or a coach, somebody like that. Well, this year it happens to be the man sitting right next to me, and rightfully so. He had a great dozen years in Tiger Town. He had the great Final Four finish in 2006, won a few SEC titles, did some great things there. And here he is. Once again, he is my NCAA college basketball the guy that talks to me about what it is about college. Last year was every week. This year we decided, hey, let's just do this once a month. But now that the calendar has switched over to March, we might have to get you a little more frequently.
Be glad to do it. Give my opinion. Not that means a lot, but have had some experience in that regard, so I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be an unpredictable NCAA tournament based on how college basketball has gone this year.
Oh, my goodness. And it usually is unpredictable anyway, so if it's any more unpredictable, we're in for a crazy March. It seems like every March is a little bit nuts. But, hey, we just had Bob Marlin on. I want to get to your talk and what it means to you to be a legend, but since that just happened, I want your opinion on this team. They finished 26-5, the UL Raging Cajuns. 16-2 in conference. Really, they were so close to having it 17-1. They kind of let the brakes off, and they ended up losing after having a 17-point lead. What does it take for them to go to the NCAA tournament? Are they going to have to win this Sun Belt tournament?
Well, honestly, I think they have to win the Sun Belt Conference tournament here in New Orleans in order to advance to the NCAA tournament, based on one of the criteria that seems to be heavily weighed this year is strength of schedule and RPI.
Right.
And the only way you can improve your strength of schedule is play the top 75 teams really in that quadrant one that they've all talked about. And the Sun Belt doesn't have that opportunity. And then you lose a home game to a team that's not in the top 75. It certainly does hurt your own RPI, as that's what happened to Lafayette last Saturday at home when they lost to Little Rock, I presume. So it's going to be difficult for them, although Bob Marlin does an excellent job of coaching year in and year out. And to be 16-2 in any league, I think is a remarkable accomplishment. But I do think they have to win the conference tournament here in New Orleans in order to advance to the NCAA.
They're very good, and I have to say they have to be the favorites in that. And I, for one, will be rooting for them. They're a South Louisiana team, and I think he deserves it. He's had a great career. Let's move forward. One of the things you just mentioned was you have to have some good wins. And believe it or not, LSU's not going to the NCAA tournament unless they win the SEC tournament. However, they do have a bunch of those quadrant one wins that are so desirable for the NCAA tournament. So when I say that, I'm not talking about going. I'm talking about moving forward for next year. And then they close strong on Saturday. That's really what I want to get to, because you got to watch this team every game all season long. And then you saw them probably with their best half of basketball in the second half against Mississippi State to pull away. It was a tight game in the first half and win 78-57. First, your thoughts on that game, and then I want to give an overall picture to the season that you just witnessed.
Well, Mississippi State came in and won 8 out of 10, and for LSU to play as well as they did. I've talked about LSU. The last 5 or 6 games prior to the Mississippi State game on Saturday, we've defended well the first half.
Yeah.
The second half, our field goal stats over 52%. We hadn't done well. We've been beaten in the second half, particularly because we didn't defend as well as we should have. But Saturday, not only offensively were we quite good, our defensive presence for 40 minutes of that game was the best it'd been all year. And anytime you put efficient offense together with really good defense for 40 minutes and your ability to break even on the board, you got a chance to beat a lot of people, and that's what they did with a 20-point win at home to finish out a really surprisingly successful season that LSU had this year.
Yeah, 17-13. They beat Michigan, who's now everybody's darling in the tournament. I mean, they won the Big Ten tournament. They're ranked 7th in the country. I mean, they have some good wins. I mean, Houston is rolling right now, and Houston's one of the favorites to win their conference tournament, and that conference has Cincinnati, Wichita State.
Well,
so they're doing pretty darn well.
Well, the Michigan win in Maui, then you come home and you beat Houston, who's as you said, is really good, and then you sweep Arkansas, who people say are in the tournament. You sweep A&M, who people say are in the tournament. You know, those are 6 really good wins for LSU to have this year, and who knows what might happen. I don't think, like you said, I don't think they're going to go to the NCAA tournament unless they win the SEC tournament, but certainly I think there'll be a quality NIT team, and who knows, they may get on a roll and have a chance to go to New York, provided they get in that tournament, which I think they deserve to be able to do.
I do too, and Coach, they do have the 6 o'clock start on Thursday, and it is in St. Louis, and you will not only be there calling the game, you will be getting honored. And I, for one, want to be one of the first to congratulate you on that this week, because I know it's a big deal, and I know you might just think it's something that happens to occasionally when you get older, but you have earned this, my friend.
Go there. Well, I appreciate it. I'm really grateful to the LSU administration, Kent Lowe, and certainly Will Wade, because for me to be able to represent LSU as a legend in the Southeastern Conference basketball tournament, be introduced at halftime, and be kind of wined and dined for 4 or 5 days, Will Wade had to prove that. It's his program. When I was at LSU, I chose who the legend was. So he approved it, and I'm really appreciative of Will Wade for allowing me to represent LSU in that way, and it really does mean a lot.
Well, I appreciate you approving Dale Brown in 2004 because I got to be the one whining and dining him in Atlanta, and we had a real good week.
How would you say no to Dale Brown?
I mean, exactly.
You can't do that.
Exactly. You might have wanted to at that point.
That's exactly right.
Exactly. All right, give it to him. All right, but now going in, moving forward with the tournament, you have the 2 games being played on Wednesday for the teams finishing 11 through 14. And usually these are really bad teams for the most part, or teams that aren't that well. This year, I can't say they're really bad, honestly. I look at Georgia, who swept LSU. They're pretty strong. They're in there. South Carolina was in the Final Four last year. And then, obviously, you have a couple other teams in Vanderbilt who beat LSU once out of the 2 times they played. And then Ole Miss, who's struggling because their coach is gone, and they might be mailing in a little bit.
Well, anything can happen there, but certainly I think Vanderbilt and Ole Miss definitely are the bottom 2 teams. But after that, Georgia's quite good. The team I saw in Georgia when they beat us in Athens a couple of weeks ago wasn't really the same team I saw in Baton Rouge a month before that. That team was lively, bouncy, made baskets. I mean, they were really good. So it's going to be an interesting Southeastern Conference basketball tournament. South Carolina can defend and rebound, and those things travel on the road really well. And Frank Martin's team will really play well. So I'm looking for good games throughout the Southeastern Conference basketball tournament in St. Louis, not knowing who's going to win. The favorite, I would say, would probably be Tennessee, the way they've closed the year and the way they're put together on both ends of the floor. But after that, it's a crapshoot.
Well, speaking of crapshoots, I'm going to have some fun with this. Since you just mentioned Tennessee, I will bring this up. Last year, you might have forgotten, but I have not.
Kiss of death.
You said that you are the kiss of death. You know where I'm going then. Rick Barnes. You said was definitely the coach of the year. They were rolling. This was last year. I'm talking about 2017. And then they lost 6 in a row, and he was out of contention. This year, the last time you were on was just a couple weeks ago, and you said, hey, man, Alabama, definitely in the tournament. And then they go ahead, and Avery Johnson's team loses 5 games in a row. Please don't say anything good about LSU today.
I think LSU will lose the first game.
All right, perfect. They're going all the way. Yeah, so what happened to Alabama?
Well, my take on Alabama, I've seen them up in close personal twice. What I think is defensively and rebounding, they're good. That's their consistent mark. But offensively, they're all over the board. Sometimes the wrong players shoot the ball. Sometimes the wrong players shoot it too much. Sometimes they take poor shots. But when they play inside out and they want to establish something around the goal and then move out of that, if they don't score it off the break, I think they're quite good. But certainly from an offensive standpoint, has been my biggest argument with Alabama. That's why they're up and down. That's why they've been all over the board. I think if they were more stable offensively, they'd be a more consistent winning basketball team.
One game that we know that is scheduled for Thursday, because there's 2 games scheduled, and then 2 you have to wait to see who wins on Wednesday, right? But it's LSU, Mississippi State. LSU just had a great game against them, but that doesn't mean they're going to do it again. They're not at home. They're in St. Louis. It's a neutral site game. But what makes LSU special? Because what I've noticed from the first game that I saw with you, actually, we went to the Tulane exhibition game before the season. We all know Tremont Waters is the star of the team, and he is the straw that stirs the drink. But what I've noticed is that Skylar Mays, from the first half of that exhibition game to the second half, was a different player. And I've noticed from the first half of the season to the second half of this season, I thought this guy has become more assertive and made himself one of the bigger, more important players on this team.
Well, I think a couple of things have helped Skylar Mays. Number one, they moved him off the ball. Last year when he played for Johnny, he was on the point most of the time, and he doesn't have the lateral speed. He can't separate himself and make other players better. But off the ball, with Tremont Waters on the point, has certainly helped his game.
Yeah.
But I think moving him off the ball and Tremont coming in has certainly helped Skylar Mays. Skylar Mays is extremely intelligent. He's got high character. He's very coachable. He doesn't get too high or too low, and and that's why I think he's gotten better. He wants to be coached. He wants to be told what to do. He doesn't get too low or too high, so therefore he maintains a nice playing personality about him, and that's why he's gotten better throughout the course of the year. Defensively, he's gotten better. When the LSU team plays well defensively, they seem to stumble around and get 72 to 75 points a game. On a good night, they get 80. So if they guard a little bit and defend it and then rebound, LSU can beat anybody in the league, and I think they've demonstrated that throughout the year, going 8-10 in the SEC this year.
We know that they can beat Mississippi State. They just did it. Will they beat Mississippi State? You have Ben Howland going against the young Will Wade. Ben Howland had some great success at Pitt, had some success at UCLA. Now at Mississippi State, it's been mixed success. But this guy knows how to coach big games. What do you think is going to happen on Thursday night?
Well, in a situation like that, I've always tried to prepare a team that where the game before the previous game, whether you've lost it or won it, has nothing to do with the next preparation for the next game. Therefore, if you've won, you can't assume you're going to prepare as well and win the next one, or if you've lost, prepare as poorly as you probably did to lose the game. So every game takes on its own personnel and its own set of circumstances. So I think they need to forget about what happened in Baton Rouge when they played really well against Mississippi State, prepare for this game like they hadn't played them before, and treat it as such, because I think that's the only way mentally you can get back correctly to prepare for a game like this in the SEC tournament.
All right, well, Auburn was the surprise winner of the league. I mean, they obviously, once the season started, they were way ahead for a bit. Tennessee was rolling, then they had a big slump, and then they got hot again. So they ended up tied 1-2. They're both 13-5, but Auburn has the edge. And then you have Florida, Arkansas, Kentucky, and I'll throw Missouri and A&M in that bunch. They're all kind of bunched up there. Those are looking like possible tournament teams. Do you think any of them has to win games in this tournament to go forward, and what's your outlook?
I would say Arkansas and Missouri would certainly help their resume if they could win a first-round game in the SEC tournament. If they both get upset in their first game in the SEC tournament, I think there's some argument against both of those teams. You know, they say Alabama is still in the tournament at 8-10.
They have to win.
Losing 5 games in a row. Oh, they need to win.
And they're 17-14, 8-10 in conference. I don't see how
I just don't see the resume. Yeah. Now, the RPI and the strength of schedule they say is high. They did win some games early. But I don't see them in the tournament unless they win 1 or 2 in the SEC tournament.
Kentucky Wildcats name only, or are they? I mean, they got a bunch of young guys that are starting to gel a little bit. What do you think?
Well, at 10-8 in the league, I think Kentucky's in, and with the youth of their team, they've won 3 or 4 lately. At 10-8, I think Kentucky's in, regardless of what they do in the first round.
Not only are they the youngest team in all of college basketball, they're one of the youngest teams in the history of college basketball, and that means those freshmen are young freshmen. Yes. It's like wow. But Florida seems to be getting hot right now. Mike White. He's done some good things at Louisiana Tech. Now he's starting to do them at Florida as well. What do you think about him going forward? Because he's a tournament-tested kind of coach.
Well, see, outside of Tennessee, my second best team right now that I'm going to put the kiss of death on, as you say, is Florida. When their point guard plays well, they're pretty good. When they when they approach it inside out, they're better. If they come down and search the 3 early, I don't think they're quite as good. But when they come down a little more patient offensively, if they don't get it off the break, go inside out, I think this Florida team has good talent and they have an opportunity to move on.
So, Florida or Tennessee to win this tournament?
Yeah.
Okay,
yes,
we'll go with that. We'll put you on the spot.
With my third pick, A&M.
A&M. I like A&M, actually. Yeah. I do like them. Hey, by the way, I got to give somebody near and dear to your heart who's done nothing but good things. His name is Kermit Davis. He coached under you for a long time. He has done a remarkable, and I mean remarkable job at Middle Tennessee State. I love this team. They got that Sweet 16, was it 2 years ago, or was it last year?
Well, the first game.
They got the first game.
They've won 2 first-round games the last 2 years.
And they almost won that next one. They should have won. But bottom line is the guy can coach in the tournament. What do you think about them and maybe his future?
Well, I hope they get an at-large bid. You know, the pressure on mid-major teams, as we've talked about Bob Marlin, for them to win every single game. I mean, they lose one game, it's almost devastating in their opportunity to get an at-large bid. And I think the NCAA now is discouraging that the way they're figuring the RPI. But that as it may be, I think Kermit Davis over the last 5 or 6 years has done more with less than anybody in the country. And I wish he would have an opportunity to coach at the high major level, because I know if he happened to be in the SEC, there are a lot of coaches in the SEC that wouldn't want to face Kermit Davis on a night-in, night-out basis.
Well, we already talked about the national scene with Seth Dunlap, but do you have a thought about who might win this national tournament? Or somebody that...
Well, you got to go with the favorite. Like Villanova, I think Michigan State's playing really well. I've always liked defending, rebounding, and I've always liked Izzo in that regard. But who I've seen lately on TV is I think Kansas has really played well lately. I think their team is coming on. I think they lost a couple of games early on in the league at home, uncharacteristic of them, but they've won like 14 straight Big 12 titles or whatever. It's nuts.
Yeah, it didn't look like they were going to get it this year. It's either 14 win or tied. But still.
Whatever it is. But I like the way their team is playing. I like their guard play. And I think they're a sleeper out there. And I would hate to play the Kansas team in the NCAA tournament, first round, second round, or Elite Eight or whatever the case may be.
Coach, I appreciate you, man. My basketball analyst, that's the words I was looking for when I introduced you, but I can't thank you enough for doing this, and we got to get you at least one time during the actual big dance, if you don't mind. If you're not in Maui. If you're not in Maui after being a legend and all, but I appreciate you. Great things you've done at LSU, and I'm very proud of you, as is the whole LSU family. And I know they'll all be behind you when you get this award, or this honor, I should say, on Thursday evening. All
appreciate it.
Congrats, brother. Hey, I want to thank John Brady. I want to thank Coach Bob Marlin. Wish him the best of luck this week at the Sun Belt Tournament. Get over there to UNO Lakefront Arena. I'm telling you, it's going to be some really good basketball. You also have UL Monroe going in there, and some great teams around the South as well, including Georgia State, Georgia Southern. They're all over the place, and those teams in Arkansas as well. Well, that might be Southland. I get them mixed up. There's one in the South and one in the Sun Belt, just kind of like it is in Louisiana. But I want to thank also Seth Dunlap, and also my producer Will Hill, and everybody here at WLAE and CST, the Redhead Tsunami, Anthony, and of course Naila. She does it all for us. Thank you very much. We'll see you next week. March Madness, everybody. Go watch you some basketball.